Unless you've been living in a cage for, well, quite some time, you'll know that a new HTC One was imminent, and now it's here, and it's called the HTC One M8. And inside this aluminium chassis behemoth is a quad-core processor, dual camera sensors with a depth sensor, HTC Sense 6 and boom sound. Now that's all well and good, and if you want to find out what our first impressions were of the HTC One M8, then please click the annotation, because in this video we'll be pitting this against the Samsung Galaxy S5, the Nexus 5, the iPhone 5S and the Sony Xperia Z2. Out with the old and in with the new, and the HTC One M8 replaces the HTC One at the top of the company's pecking order. So what's changed? First up, the design. It looks pretty similar, but it is in fact heavier than its predecessor at 9.3mm thin and 160 grams heavy, compared to the same thickness but 143 grams. Having said that, it actually feels sleeker in the hand. The ports have had a revamp, with the HTC One M8 adding a micro SD card port, and the headphone jack is now on the bottom. The latest iteration also comes with a new finish, metal grey, that has a brushed metal back. The buttons on the bottom have been removed, and all in all it's a tidier design, even though we loved the first one. Specs-wise, the screen is larger at 5 inches but keeps the same resolution of 1080p, although the PPIs have been dropped from 469 to 441. There's no Beats audio, instead you'll find boom sound, and if we're honest, that's a good thing. It makes for a much richer sound listening to music, and the front-facing speakers are a huge bonus. The processor's had a bump, although it's still quad-core, is up to 2.5 GHz compared to 1.7. It's the camera that's the biggest difference between the HTC One and the M8. The ultra pixels are the same at 4 in total on the rear-facing camera, but it's had a complete UI overhaul, making it much simpler to use. HTC has also added the second depth sensor on the back, adding multi-focus images and parallax effects to pics. We love the camera on the original, and the latest is even better. The secondary cameras had a huge bump, up from 2.1 megapixels to 5, and both shoot 1080p video with the rear camera. Battery life is quoted as improved compared to the original, up to 2,600 mAh compared to 2,300 on the HTC One. It's a great update from the HTC One. The camera is the main highlight and makes it a real contender for an upgrade, but how does it compete with the other blowers out there? Samsung laid down the gauntlet for other Androids to follow earlier this year with the Samsung Galaxy S5, and this is the phone that the HTC One M8 has its sights on. In terms of design, we think it's fair to say that the M8 wins it. It's just a much more premium luxe device. Samsung has updated the design of its S5, but we're still not sold on that almost 80s-like dappled back, and we would have loved to see some metal in there. Size-wise, the S5 is thinner and lighter, 8.1mm and 145 grams, but that doesn't make up for the somewhat tacky feel of it. Onto the screen, and they're almost identical in size, with the S5 just pipping the M8 with 0.1 of an inch at 5.1 inches in size. But HTC's offering has it when it comes to PPIs, beating the S5's 432 with 441. The camera was where people had their hopes on the S5, and it didn't fail to deliver. It landed with a 16-megapixel sensor on the back compared to the M8's 4 ultra pixels. Both have the ability to select focus on pics, but the M8 has the extra of the parallax effect. Onto video, and although the M8 copes well in low light, the S5 beats it with sheer specs, with the ability to shoot 4K. The front-facing cameras are worlds apart, with Samsung offering just 2 megapixels compared to the M8's 5 megapixels. Selfie lovers will love the latter. What the S5 does offer is a bucket load of extra features. Inside, you'll find a heart rate monitor and a fingerprint scanner. It's also waterproof and dustproof, while the M8 is not. The S5 is more power too, with 2.5 GHz compared to 2.3, plus it has a bigger battery at 2,800 mAh. On now to Apple and its flagship iPhone 5S. The HTC One M8 dwarfs it in size. The iPhone is over 2mm thinner and over 20 grams lighter. Side by side, it's like little and large. The screen on the M8 at 5 inches is almost in iPad mini Retina territory compared to the comparably dinky 4 inches in the iPhone 5S. There's no microSD card port on the iPhone, so no expandable memory, which is a bonus on the HTC. Processor-wise, Apple stuck to its own with a dual-core offering compared to the quad-core on the HTC, but it does come with the M7 co-processor. Both are lightning fast, and we love both blink feed and iOS 7. Camera-wise, it's a clear win for HTC. Yes, the 8-megapixel camera in the iPhone 5S is fantastic, and you can do slow-mo video, but the quality of the pictures are better on the M8. The M8 also adds the ability to select multifocus, as we've mentioned, and the Zoe Highlights app is a nice addition too. It's true that the iPhone 6 could change the game again in the battle between these two. Currently, in our top 10 smartphones, the iPhone 5S sits above the HTC One, but the M8 could change all that. The top Android in our top 10 is the Nexus 5. The reasons it's there? The incredible screen at 1080p, Android KitKat, and it has an affordable price tag. The HTC One M8 matches all of those apart from the price tag. What we didn't like about the Nexus 5 was the average camera and the lack of microSD card slot. Again, the HTC One had a fantastic camera, and the M8 makes it even better and adds a microSD card slot too. The M8 is certainly looking strong as a top Android contender. Finally, we have the latest offering from Sony, the Xperia Z2. It's a close call when it comes to the design of these two. Both are made from aluminium and feel great to hold. What the Z2 offers that the M8 doesn't is waterproof and dustproof, a la the Samsung Galaxy S5. They're pretty close weight-wise, with the Z2 coming in at 0.3 grams heavier. The screens are pretty similar too, both at 5 inches, but Sony's offering 0.2 inch more. It seems all smartphone screens are expanding, apart from those coming out from Cupertino. Both have a resolution of 1080p, but the HTC wins it again with pixels per inch. It's a close call. As with the Samsung Galaxy S5 and the iPhone 5S, the camera is the main battleground between these two. Sony's megapixel count comes in at 20.7, making it the biggest of all our competitors. It's also added in some handy handycam features to videos such as slow-mo and the incredibly useful steady shot image. There's also 4K shooting and time shift mode added to vids. The battery on the Z2 is huge at 3,200 mAh compared to the HTC's pretty decent 2,600. Processors are pretty near the Mark II, with the Xperia offering quad-core 2.3 GHz to challenge the M8's 2.5. When we get both in for our full test, it'll be interesting to see who wins this Android battle, as it's a close call after the hands-on.
So that was it, the battle of the massive smartphones. That's what we think, but what do you guys think? Let us know in the comments below if this will be swapping your iPhone or your Android phone, and please subscribe to the channel for the latest tech news, reviews and features.